everyone. Thank you for coming back to another episode on David's Saturday Night Sit Back. And tonight, sitting back with me, I have my friend Vik Singh from the gym. Vik is a graduate from Southern New Hampshire University with his master's in business administration. He's worked for companies like Dell, Dun & Bradstreet, and Hewlett Packard. More recently, Vik founded Serenity Falls Deodorant, an aluminum-free deodorant with scents such as coconut and vanilla, eucalyptus, and ocean. Vik is a very well-traveled man. He's been to places such as Greece, Dubai, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, Ireland, Morocco, Croatia, Italy, London, France, Vegas, and New York City. Today, Vik and I are going to sit back to talk about his story leading up to being an entrepreneur, business, stock market investing, the party scene in Austin, Texas, global travel, fitness, and we will see what other rabbit holes we dive down into. Vik, thank you for being here, and welcome to your episode on DSNSB.
Thank you for having me, David. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, dude. Just a few icebreakers to sort of kick things off this morning. Do you happen to have a favorite entrepreneur or business idol that you sort of admired over the years?
There's definitely a few that come to mind. I've definitely been inspired by a lot of great business people. And I'll actually say that my mom's side of the family was entirely in business. So I learned a great deal from them growing up. As far as, public figures, I'm definitely a fan of Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary, some of the guys on Shark Tank, Donald Trump. There's a lot of, and some of them might be more polarizing figures, but I definitely appreciate what they've been able to achieve in business. Bill Ackman, these guys are great investors. Warren Buffett, people like them.
You watch a lot of Shark Tank?
I do. I definitely have watched a good amount for sure.
Dude, I love that show.
Yeah.
I don't know why I like it so much, but there's just something about it where I probably watch 2 or 3 episodes a week just because I enjoy it being on in the background so much.
100%. Yeah, you definitely learn a lot, just from, there's so many kinds of businesses that go on there. Some of them are selling an experience. Some of them are, trying to get more products, consumer products. So it's definitely an interesting and a really beneficial show for even young entrepreneurs, young adults to just tune in and learn more about.
Some of the kids that get on that show, when they get someone who's like 8, 10, 16, even like 18, man, that seems like such an intimidating environment to be in, like in front of 4 potential investors on national TV, lights, cameras, a whole crew, and then you also got to perfectly articulate why they should invest, pretty large chunk of money into their business. And some of those teens just get up there with poise that I could only dream of having.
Yeah, I feel like, and also I think there's almost an added benefit for them being so young too, that they're not necessarily, they don't have the guardrails up. They're not necessarily super nervous. Kids are kind of just fearless in a way. They kind of have that, they don't have like a built-in sense of fear yet. That's kind of developed over a period of time. As an adult, they're more mindful about what they're doing, so they can just go out there and do that. And I think that's a trait that you should have in business and just in any kind of sales job that you're in, is just be fearless and always be confident. Go in there, don't be afraid to ask for the sale, and know your value.
If you, knowing your story, your journey up until this point today, why would you encourage the audience to stick around for this episode, knowing what we'll probably be talking about over the next 60 to 90 minutes?
Yeah, I hope that people tune in to learn a little bit more about myself and learn about the business and some of my experiences growing up and being an entrepreneur and being in the tech industry. I've learned a great deal from a lot of other people that have been around me as well. So it's always beneficial to hear other people's experiences, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. 1 or 2 more icebreakers before we jump into things. Before you go to any kind of big meeting or event, do you have any hype song that you turn on? Or if it's not a song, do you have any kind of ritual that you like to perform before going to something that you know is going to have a potentially big impact on you? Or even just something like this, you're going to a podcast, any rituals that you perform?
No, I wouldn't say a ritual exactly. I would say that I'm really locked in. So when I'm about to go into a meeting or I'm showing up for the podcast, I'm locked in. I'm dialed in, ready to go. It's sort of like you put on the headphones and, you're ready to podcast, right? Yep. It's like if you're going into a boxing ring, you're putting on the gloves, by then your mindset is, you're ready to go. You're in the zone, and that's all it is. Sometimes I definitely understand when people have their own routine and whatnot, going into it, but for myself, I'm thinking of the event or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
just ready to get after it.
Yeah, there is one of the more surprising things told to me on this podcast, surprising and also not at the same time, was I had a UFC fighter on, and I watched one of his matches that lasted about 16 minutes,
Wow.
just to get a feel for. It's just how I like to research guests, even if it might not lead to any questions. I just like to
Right.
like see the people in action if I can. And when I asked him about that fight in particular. He was like, "Oh yeah. That one was like, it was like 30 seconds to 90 seconds, right? How long did that one last?" I was like, "Dude, it was 16 minutes." And he's like, "Oh, it was." But yeah, he said that so many fighters are so dialed in to just watching your opponent and almost playing like human chess and thinking
Yeah.
about like, this is based off their posture, this is what they're going to do, this is how I'm going to counter that, and your mind is just so busy that it's almost like time disappears and
Right.
you're just locked into the one thing that is in front of you, which is your opponent.
100%. I mean, it's really a 90% mental, 10% physical kind of space, especially, I mean, then martial arts. And I feel like just a lot of things, it's like that. Even in the gym, working out a lot, it's really a mental thing. You have to be able to push through those challenges. And, at the end of the day, nobody can lift the weight for you. You have to lift it yourself. And the only way to do that is just by being able to power through it and find a way to win and get the job done.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about you?
Biggest misconception people have about me. I'm not sure, to be honest. I would say I'm pretty authentic. So if somebody asks me a question, I'll give a straight, honest answer. I'll give the brutal truth. I have no problem holding back on being completely honest with people. So, I'll always be authentic, but that's not really a misconception. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'd have to maybe ask somebody, but for the most part, I can give an accurate answer and whatnot. So, yeah.
I think the biggest one is people think you're a weight slammer.
A weight slammer.
Do you remember how we met? Or maybe we didn't meet, but do you remember the very first time we ever interacted with each other?
Yes, I do. I remember the story now. That is hilarious. I do remember the story. That is hilarious. Yeah, that was super funny. Yeah, going to the gym. I've been going to the gym for a huge part of my life, probably like 15 years, like plus almost. And I remember the story that you're talking about. Somebody thought I was slamming the weights. And I was like, listen, man, I was like, I'm definitely not slamming the weights. And I guess the guy was just having a bad day or something, wanted to say that I was. But yeah, that definitely wasn't me.
Yeah.
I was lifting heavy, that for sure, but I was not slamming the weights that day.
There is a funny, I don't know if this falls into the category of a misconception, but one time at the gym, a guy probably my age came up to me and he says, he made eye contact. We both take out our headphones and he says, "Hey, I got a question for you." I said, "Yeah, what's up, dude?" And he says, "Are you a youth pastor?" And I said, "No, I'm furthest thing from it." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he turns around to walk away. And I was like, hey, you can't just ask someone that and then walk away. Like, what vibes am I giving off right now that you'd walk up to me and be like, "Hey, are you a youth pastor?"
Oh, my
And so
goodness.
there's a couple of dudes at the gym who are probably like 16, 17, 18 years old that know who I am. They know I have a podcast. They like to talk about the podcast, the guests, whatever. And so they'll come up and chat with me. And so he was like, "Well, I just saw you talking with that group of teens and I just figured maybe you're their pastor." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Nope."
No, not at all.
And then he never asked me like how I know them or what do I do. He was just like, "All right." And then he turned around and leave again. I was like, "All right, homeboy doesn't want to talk, I guess." But
Yeah, no, for sure. No, for sure. That's funny. It's people are interesting, man. You never know what someone else is thinking. They can come up to you and it's hard to say until you have. But it's always funny to have those kinds of interactions and whatnot.
yeah. That say that your life is a book and every page of that book represents one day. What do you think is one of the more significant pages of your journey that gives us context as to who's sitting across from me this afternoon?
It's really it's really hard to say because I feel like every part of my life was very valuable and I learned a great deal and from it. So every lesson I've learned along the way, whether you're young or you're a teenager or a young adult or in your 20s and whatnot, it's all valuable and it's part of your journey. So it would be almost doing myself a disservice by diminishing some other aspect of it.
Sure.
So I would just say everything is important. The past, the present, future, everything is, an important part of the process.
Are you a Zen person?
I am not. No.
Okay, I am gonna partake because it
No
helps me
worries.
lock in.
Yeah.
Here's one of my rituals.
Yeah,
for
mine is
better or for
I'm,
worse.
I'm a coffee person, morning coffee person. So that I have to have for sure.
Let's go through a couple pages then.
Sure.
And let's just go back to the beginning and work our way up to today. Where were you born?
I was born and raised in Austin, Texas.
You're a local Austinite?
I am.
There's not many of you left.
I know that. I'm realizing that every time I meet somebody, every weekend, I'm out almost every weekend here in Austin. If I'm not traveling, I'm out a lot, but I meet people and I always say, "Are you from Austin?" They're like, "No, I'm not from here. I just moved here." And then they ask, "Well, what about yourself?" And I'm like, "No, I was born and raised here." And they're like, "Oh, well, there's only a few of y'all here." So it's great. I've seen so much change happen, and a lot of great people are here now, and the city, even the skyline. I mean, I saw this video recently, and it was a video of the skyline in Austin and how much it's changed over the past 10 years. Just absolutely incredible.
Austin's a beautiful town. Even
Yeah.
just this morning when we walked around the boardwalk, and you sort of have the mix of, you have the river, the city,
Right.
the trees, the sun's rising, and so you sort of feel like you're out of nature, but you're also like have this big old city right next to you. And yeah, dude, it's a sick town for many reasons.
Yeah, and there's honestly something for everybody. So if you want to spend your day on the lake, you can do that. If you want to go out to the bars, or there's cocktail lounges. If you want to go to a rooftop, or just listen to some live music, there's literally something for everybody. And I can see why it's gotten so many people, so much. It's gotten so much more attention, and people are wanting to move here now more than ever. So it's an amazing place to be.
What was life like growing up in Austin?
It was good. It was really cool. I also went to Lake Travis for high school, played varsity football over there. So I've always been just active and been outside in the active lifestyle.
Yep.
I like to have fun as well. So that definitely plays a factor in probably growing up. But I've always liked those kinds of things for sure. Just being active. Definitely about the finer things in life.
Yep.
And just great experiences. Meeting new people is a huge part of it for sure.
Yeah. Did you have any siblings?
I do. I have a younger sister.
How close in age are you guys?
She just turned 22, so it's about a 5-6 year age. I'll be 28 this year.
Okay.
So.
Were you guys growing up? Were you guys close? Not close?
Yeah,
Somewhere?
no, we were really close for sure. It was really cool having a younger sibling. Still is. We have our
We
moments.
don't get along anymore now.
Yeah,
No, I'm
exactly.
kidding.
I think actually, what's really interesting is we actually probably get along even more so now than ever, because now we're both adults, and it's sort of, you have to be a little bit more mindful about what you're saying and doing in front of your younger sibling and whatnot. You want to lead by example, be a good example and role model and whatnot. Not saying that I was just like Mr. Perfect or anything like that, but you do your best, and it's great. I even learn a lot from her too. So.
How do you think, based off what you've observed, how do you think growing up in Austin is different now versus when you were growing up, 5, 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it is not just based on the city, but just what's available. Like, I would remember going out and stepping outside and hanging out with friends. We didn't just spend time on like an iPad or, things like that. A lot of kids today are raised with, just right in front of an iPad and electronics, and they don't really have that level of social interaction the way that we did growing up. We would go outside and, just talk and do whatever. There wasn't like iPads and all these other things going on at the time. I mean, we had iPods to listen to music and whatnot, but I really appreciated all of that, because that was a huge part of it for sure.
What if you take social media out of the equation? Like, let's say you were a kid right now. Let's say you were 14 today, and maybe you have a phone, but you're pretty good at just pocketing it and going out to hang with the friends. Is there anything different that you think Austin offers that it didn't 20 years ago?
Yeah, there's so many new places now for even for even people that age. But I'm trying to think. I spend a lot more times at places that are 21 and above, so it's hard to come to mind. But But no, just going to Zilker Park. I mean, go outside and go do something. Like go work out, have interests, and be in a mindset of wanting to learn more. And that'll go a long way for sure.
Yeah. Dude, well, that's one thing I love about Zilker is I'll try to take the dog. We'll probably go tomorrow night, but we'll go like once or twice a week between Friday and Sunday normally. And the amount of people that are out there just hanging out is so refreshing. And it's one of those things. It's like, well, as a city, we could sit around and grumble about like all these kids and their tech,
Right.
or the city could provide places like Zilker so they have a place where they can just go play and be kids and
Right.
do spike ball and sand volleyball and soccer and hang with the homies and get outside. And that's one thing I love about Austin is that I don't think Zilker was built to combat the influx of social media in our lives,
Right.
but at the same time, it's cool that it's there and that if you go out there on Sunday night, there's just as many teenagers hanging out as there are adults too.
Yeah, yeah, and like these options should always exist. It shouldn't necessarily be one or the other. I'm not saying to disregard, social media. I
Of
mean,
course.
social media is a huge part of my life for sure, and that's how you have an online brand for yourself, and that's how you get to know other people who are not directly in front of you. So people can check out your page and try to get a better understanding of who you are, or at least what you're into. And so that definitely is a huge part of it for sure. But
Yeah.
having the ability to do both is definitely beneficial.
I love social media, man. I don't know how I would market
Yeah.
this thing if I didn't have it.
Yeah, no, Sam, I'm always on. Even though if I'm not always posting on social media, I'm definitely on it for sure. I'm definitely like active and checking out things and whatnot. And I think we're all guilty of being on our phones probably way too much.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What was your high school experience like at Lake Travis?
It was really cool. It was really, really cool. I met a lot of cool people and had a blast. Got to play sports, like I mentioned earlier, and it's just such an amazing area. Feel very fortunate to have been able to grow up there and had the experiences that I've had, and then yeah, it was just a blast.
What sports did you play?
I played varsity football.
You were a football player?
I was.
You
Yeah.
play all up until your senior year of high school?
I played senior year, so I started playing football when I was in 7th grade. So pretty late. Some of those kids were playing for a long before that, well before that. But it was interesting because I'd played other sports growing up. So I was in basketball, played football, and I just kind of stuck with it. I just kept going, and I think that's part of why I work out a lot is just it's kind of just been beaten into you. You just kind of keep going.
Yeah.
Going to the gym, you're so used to like waking up, putting the shoes on, and just hitting the gym. It's just part of a lifestyle now. I don't really consider it a hobby. I just consider it a part of my lifestyle.
Yeah, me too. It's one of those things. It's like work is over and it's almost just automatic.
Yeah.
Like you grab the bag and you change and you're off to the gym. It's just
Yeah.
like brushing your teeth or walking the dog. Like it's just ingrained at this point.
Yeah, and it's been so long. I mean, I've been doing it for just such a long time too. It is really ingrained. And I think for people who are just getting started, it's tough to make that jump. But once they do, and I mean, 90% of it is just you show up, right? Once you've shown up, you will work out and you will, want to push yourself. At least I definitely, am like that. I'm always wanting to push myself. And so I feel that once I get there, I'm locked in. I'm
Yeah.
ready to go.
I'm like that most days, and when I'm not like that, that's where pre-workout comes
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
like,
for
all right,
sure.
I need my crutch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
What oh, the question was right there and it escaped me. It was something about your family. What did your parents do? There it is.
So my dad is in sales for a tech company. So he's done really well. He's done a tremendous job in that space. My mom, once she got married and had the kids, she was just raising the kids. That was her job.
Yeah.
But she worked a lot growing up. She worked with her parents, and she had some sales and marketing job before she got married as well. But learned a great deal from her. So her family, like I mentioned earlier, was all in business. So they're very much so have that kind of mindset towards, just wanting, towards entrepreneurship and wanting to achieve and, be successful and whatnot. And my dad was shared a similar mindset in terms of wanting to be successful and work hard. He just did that in the tech industry. So, but he's done a tremendous job.
What's your mom? Were some of your mom's family members entrepreneurs as well?
Yeah, so her brother was an entrepreneur. Her parents were. They were all in the, like I mentioned, they were in the restaurant industry. So definitely a little bit different than the kind of business I'm trying to break into right now.
Yeah.
That I'm breaking into, but still, nevertheless, is still really valuable.
What do you think? Is there any moments that you had that you remember with your parents where they really just shined and they taught you something either through their actions or their words that has stuck with you through the years?
Um, you know, I think you just notice a lot of sacrifices and you notice work ethic and you notice, your top values and, whatnot. But when you really see it firsthand, it's just different. It's hard to put it into words. It's just something that you see and you feel and then you remember and you carry that with you and in a really positive way. And I think that's probably why my work ethic is the way it is. I just always push myself. For me, if I do something, I give it 110%. I'm not one of those guys that just, kind of half-asses anything ever. Like I just never do that. I just always treat everything, if I'm going to put my name on it, I'm going to give all that I got.
Yeah.
So that's just how I do things. But
And you think that mostly stems from your parents, or is there anything else that motivates that as well? Like, do you think part of it is I don't want to say pride or ego, but sort of a healthy pride about like when Vic does something, it's gonna get done right, and that's what I want people to know about me. Does that play into it at all?
no, that definitely that definitely plays into it for sure. And I would say that's also a reason why pride or ego is almost a good thing. I know people in today's world probably try to say, oh, they're, egotistical or, oh, this is bad. But if that drives you to want to, be more successful and work hard, then why not? I
Yeah.
mean, everybody wants to do well in life. At least I would think, I would hope so and think so. Just depending on what someone's priorities are. But that definitely keeps me motivated. I
Yeah.
want to do well and I want people around me to do well. I like sharing great things with, great people. So, it's always, that's just what motivates me.
Yeah. Who were your closest friends growing up?
My closest friends growing up. So I moved for high school. So before I was in the Lake Travis area, I was in sort of South Austin before that. But all my closest friends today are people who I like went to high school with or college with. I've always stayed in touch with them, and so that's something where they've seen you at a different point in your life.
Hmm.
They've known you since you were like 15, 16 years old. If you're 27 or 26, they've really seen a lot of growth throughout the years. And so you can also, talk about stories when, at those times as well. So that's why they're probably some of my closest friends
Yeah.
today.
That's cool that you were able to stay in touch with them. I think that's I don't know about rare, but it seems like a lot of people just lose touch with the high school and the
Hmm.
college friends as we graduate, not for any
Yeah,
particular reason, but it's the proximity factor, right? Of when
for
you're
sure.
in the same place, same classroom every day, it's very easy to stay in touch because they're literally right in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's Vic.
Yeah.
Let's hang out after school today.
No,
But then once
exactly.
we graduate and we start getting busy attempting to be adults, you just lose touch with those folks. Why do you think you guys stayed in touch?
I think part of it is, social media. I think part of it is social media, staying online. Everybody clicks on, anything you post. So
Yep.
that's one way. But then also making an effort too. You have to make an effort, and the phone works both ways. So I'll reach out to them, they'll reach out to me, and
Yeah.
and it's nothing. There's no bad blood or anything like that. If you don't do that, it's totally understand. I know I
Yeah.
get busy, so if I haven't answered, that's just how that's just how it is. But no, I mean it's that's probably why we stayed in touch, and also we probably shared a lot of cool experiences, and probably want to share more too. So it's probably part of the reason.
When you graduated high school, did you have any idea what was next? You remember your mindset at that time?
Um, I just remembered I going. It was summer at the time, and it was crazy because so I have a summer birthday. So my birthday is right at the beginning of June. So I was just thinking probably about my birthday, and then partying over the summer, and just kind of getting ready for college. And yeah, I was just excited for what's to come.
Where'd you go to college?
Texas Tech.
And that's where you got your bachelor's?
Yeah, so I finished at Texas Tech, but I actually so what happened is I was over at Texas Tech, and then all this COVID stuff was happening, and so I finished online, and so that was kind of a crazy, unique time in and of itself. And then I started working, and then I got enrolled at Southern New Hampshire to do my MBA. online, and it worked out for working professionals and whatnot. So no, it's been plenty of school. I'm just like, after this I'm done. After this I'm completely done. There's no more school for me. It's just keep making money and and enjoying it and whatnot.
Yeah. How did you choose Texas Tech?
Um, you know, I hadn't, at that particular time, I was hearing more about Texas Tech. I was already aware of it, part of the Texas schools, and I wanted to leave Austin, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave Texas. But a lot of friends of mine were telling me, "Hey, I'm going to Texas Tech, and it's really great." And we had some athletes from our school actually go and play football at Texas Tech too,
Nice.
so that was really cool. Yeah, there were a good amount of girls there, so I was like, it's probably a cool place for me to go to for
Yeah.
sure. But no, and it seemed, and they have an amazing program. They have an amazing business school, and I think it's the largest campus within Texas, if I'm not mistaken. So, there's also like 50, 60,000 students there. So you meet a lot of really cool people for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's a big campus.
Yeah.
Mine was, the school I graduated from out in California was somewhere between 12 and 20,000, and I know that's a broad range, but even with 20,000 it didn't feel like that many people. But yeah, if you were to triple that, holy cow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
And what was your major in? Was it also business?
Yeah,
For
it
your
was
bachelor's
business
degree?
business administration. Yeah.
Why did you go the business route?
Probably because I thought that's what I would be the most successful in. I wasn't gonna, be an engineer, or doctor or something like that. I was like, that is way too much commitment for me. So, and I also always found the classes interesting. For the most part, I found them really interesting. Learning about economics, learning about, negotiation, and I think that's really applicable to what I do today. So,
Let's talk about negotiation for a second.
yeah.
Well, give me some negotiating skills, tactics, strategies that you've picked up either from school or even just in doing life.
Yeah, there's in a lot of negotiations, there needs to be a give and a take. So if you're giving something, you have to be taking something as well. You can't, so if you're giving certain pricing, then okay, then we need it done by a certain timeline, right? Or a certain amount of volume or certain pricing and whatnot. So there are these, not necessarily tricks, but there are these, advantages and things you can leverage in a negotiation.
Yeah.
That can, sort of weigh in your favor, so, but those are just some that come to mind right away.
Do they get into anything such as detailed as like environment, talk, like speed of talking, questions to ask, clothes to wear, colors to wear? Like, how detailed are they getting with setting yourself up to come out of this negotiation successful?
Yeah, I would say definitely being in control. If you can control the environment, if you can do it in your own territory, it's a huge move for sure. Having them come to you for a negotiation, it's kind of like you're the home team. So
Yes.
it's a really good advantage. But a lot of things are also done online too, via Teams, via Zoom. So if you're doing that, then you have to understand the value that you bring. And one important thing is being able to walk away from a deal too. We're not here to lose money or to break even. So, we're here to, to win and to make money. But there has to be an added value for them too. Otherwise, there's just, there's nothing to be made here if there's no value for them. So, really, it's really selling the value in a lot of things. Price is just what you pay. Value is what you get.
Yeah.
So that definitely plays a factor for sure.
There is right now the podcast is completely independent, and I had someone who approached me about making an investment in it recently, and one of the things that they wanted was they wanted a % of royalties in perpetuity, and I was just like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like that's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
Like, this thing is it's so new, and it's just too early on to sell any piece of it forever. And dude, I definitely had Damon John in my head. I couldn't tell you the season or the episode, but there's one episode where he told the entrepreneur that when he started Fubu, they had made not that much money. They only had one product. Someone offered him $10,000 for a stake in the business, And at the time, he almost took it, but just because he had never been offered that much money in his life before. He had
Right.
never had 5 figures in his bank account, and so
Right.
just because of that, he was sort of blinded by dollar signs. But he ended up walking away from the deal just because the terms were bad. And I remember when I was going through those negotiations with this particular production house,
Yeah.
it just felt wrong. There's just something in my gut that was
Yeah.
like, nope, no perpetuity yet, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's that's also now if you're thinking about it from their mindset as well of making those deals, sometimes, they're really aware of, where you might stand financially or how much, this money might mean to you and things like that. So they can make those kinds of deals to sort of, really get you excited and really put you in a different mindset altogether where at first glance you'll just want to take the deal and like run with it right away.
Yeah.
But that's why you have to be able to pause and think, is this really the best deal for me? If you're on the other side of it, you have to think, is this the best for me to give up, equity or to give up, to pay a royalty and whatnot? You definitely, you shouldn't jump to a decision or jump to an answer right away. Take your time and, be able to think. But if you're on Shark Tank, it might be a little bit different. You're on
Oh
the
yeah.
spot there, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of, you have to, deal, you're either in or you're out. So, but, staying sharp, you got to stay sharp.
Do you enjoy the negotiation side of business?
No, definitely. And I think part of that stems from me being in sales. I've been in sales jobs. I've done cybersecurity sales, software. So I've kind of really seen a lot of different negotiations and obviously been a part of it. And that's definitely a fun part for sure.
Yeah. If there's someone who wants to get better at negotiations, because all of us are doing them, even if
Yeah.
you think of like your average high school student, the negotiation might be, where are we going to lunch with friends?
Yeah.
And so we're all always doing it all the time, even if we're not actively thinking about it. What advice would you give to any teens that are listening that are thinking about this and wanting to be better negotiators?
Practice makes perfect. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a real negotiation. Just sort of, set up something with either a friend or practice in the mirror. But just practice makes perfect in any case. And also watch a lot of videos too. Try to get a better understanding. I read a lot about companies and deals that have happened, contracts that have been made. And so it's just, you have to put in your 10,000 hours, no matter what it is. You have to really you have to put in the time to get good at to really do well at anything. You have to, put in the hard work. You have to, really learn and then also apply yourself. A lot of people will just read and they won't apply themselves. When I read, I'm doing it with the purpose of, I plan on applying this to my life somehow.
Yeah.
I won't just read to research. I'll do it because I want to apply this to my life and so that I can, really benefit from it and whatnot.
What's been one of the more impactful books that you've read that wasn't assigned because of school?
I would say a really good book is The 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene.
Ah,
Yeah.
did Keaton tell you to read that one by chance?
No, he did not. No,
He
he did not.
preaches that book.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. I can see why. I can see why he would do that, but no, it's a fantastic book. It's absolutely great.
Where'd you get the 10,000 hours benchmark from? Is that from a book or a podcast or something you heard? Or
I think it's just something I've heard, and I don't think it's necessarily an actual number that you need to measure. Like, okay, I've done 10,000 hours.
Right,
It's just
right.
kind of it's just kind of a way of saying that you've truly, done the work and you've put in the time to, do this, and you're committed to it. It's not something that you're just passively doing. If it's something that you're just doing passively, then it's only going to, grow at that rate. If it's something that you're actively working on, whether it's your body or your business, you're actively doing something every day and giving all that you can to it, it will grow, and you're going to see a lot of growth over that period of time.
yeah. So going from Texas Tech to Southern New Hampshire, when did you make the decision to get your master's?
So this was after a few years of working. So this was so I actually have been in my MBA program now for probably a year. I'd say like a little bit over a year. So yeah, something along those lines.
What doors do you think it's going to open for you by having that?
I think it'll open other opportunities, and at minimum, I'll have these skills and valuable lessons I've learned in school, And so I'll just use whatever I feel is the most valuable and apply it to myself.
Yeah.
And, every day, whether it's in business or it's at work. And then also it's something that I can tell other people about too. And that's really a big part of it for me. Like I said, is just applying yourself. You have to, use all the knowledge that you've had and, really just, apply yourself and whatnot.
Topic of the day.
Yeah.
Serenity Falls Deodorant.
Absolutely.
Where did this idea come from? And sort of a two-part question. When did you decide you want to try out the entrepreneur game?
Yeah.
And why deodorant specifically?
Yeah, so Serenity Falls Deodorant started because, for a few reasons, but one of them is because I was becoming a little bit more mindful about what I was putting in my body in terms of, what you're, eating, drinking, and then what you're putting on your body, topical use, whether it's soaps or deodorants. And so I go to the gym a lot, obviously, and so I wanted to, have a product that's aluminum free and paraben free. And so some people have asked me, well, what makes yours different than other products and, competitors? And so my answer is, well, I'm not sure how much I want to smell like, peanut butter cookies or like some of these, other scents that exist. I was like, I don't think that's really my thing. I don't think I can stand behind that. But with our scents, we have spa-inspired scents. So it's eucalyptus, ocean, coconut, and vanilla.
Yep.
So people are responding well to it. Right now, our sales are sort of scattered. They're kind of all over the country right now. We're, domestic, so we're not into international markets just yet. But people are responding really well to it. So, yeah.
How long did it take it to go from idea to you can buy this online?
Yeah, that's probably over a year, about a year, a little over a year, I would say.
What happened during that year?
A lot. So it's a lot of research, time, and money that's being spent, and trying to come up with the right formula for ingredients. Going through prototypes, and designing the bottle. What kind of bottle do I want? What kind of scents? How is this going to resonate with my audience and my target demographic? So there's a lot of just homework that has to be done before you get started.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to, also in finance is obviously a big part of it. You have to be able to, finance it and understand that some of the batches that you have in the beginning are probably just going to, be given away as either free samples or, and this is actually, if we're talking about the pre-launch, this is just sort of figuring out what do I like beforehand. So I have to figure out, okay, just because I like it, will other people like it?
Yeah.
And so that's definitely there's a lot of testing. So you have family and friends to kind of test things out for you as well. And I tell them, be brutally honest, with me, because I'll be brutally honest with them. So I want, an honest assessment of it and whatnot. And that way I can go refine things, if anything. So
was anyone willing to be brutally honest with you with their feedback?
Oh, everybody was.
What were some of the comments you originally got?
Some of the comments I originally got, it's actually more of questions than necessarily so much, critical, constructive criticism. It was more like, hey, why is the bottle shaped like this? Or, hey, why eucalyptus? Or, hey, why this? And because I think they're more used to the traditional drugstore brands.
Yep.
And we really wanted to get away from that, because a lot of these mass market brands that exist today, they're filled with aluminum, and they're really cutting corners with a lot of ingredients that they use. And so we don't want to do that. We want to ensure that we have the best ingredients, and also that we have a fresh and subtle scent. So a lot of these other deodorants, if you put them on, so if I use a particular brand name, I won't, but if you wear this deodorant that you can find at your local drugstore, you will just reek of that scent. So now if you try to step out and you try to put cologne on, something that you've spent even more money on,
Yeah.
you won't even smell like the cologne. You'll smell more, the deodorant will sort of just overwhelm any kind of cologne you could put
Pleasant.
on. And yeah, exactly. And then what happens is you're mixing the scents, and then you don't even know what you're supposed to smell like. You're supposed to smell like at that point, and it's just way too much. And so with this, the whole idea is you're going to sweat, because it's not an antiperspirant, so it's a deodorant, not an antiperspirant. So you will sweat, but you won't smell.
Yeah, the gym's one of those places where, like, you know you're going to get some smells in your nose, whether
Yeah.
it's on the workout floor,
Yeah.
when you go in the locker room,
Right.
especially the sauna, the gym we
Yeah.
go to, that is a
Yeah.
small sauna. However,
Yeah.
there is something different when you walk by someone and you can smell their scent and their cologne at the
Yeah.
same time, and you're just
Yeah.
like, that was not a pleasant 3 seconds of
Yeah.
my day.
Yeah, and the worst is I've had it. The worst I've seen is where I'm in the gym and somebody isn't wearing deodorant or any kind of antiperspirant. They're just wearing cologne, and I'm like, I don't know what they're doing, man. I was just, it's just, I don't know. I mean, to each his own, I guess, but I'll just probably keep some distance.
That's
is
probably
all.
that almost sounds like they're recovering from a night out.
Yeah,
They rolled out
exactly.
of bed, felt a little guilty, and they're like, "I'm going straight to the gym, trying to work off some
Yeah,
of these
if they were
calories."
heading straight to the sauna, that'd make sense. Really detox.
Yeah.
Get out of it, get out the system.
What during that year, what was one of the what was there anything that was shocking to you that you just there's no way you could have anticipated that this event or thing could have been part of the journey?
I'm sorry, one more time on the last part.
During the first year,
Yeah.
when you're going from idea to market,
Yeah.
was there anything shocking about that experience in terms of like, could have been how much money it ended up taking, how long it took you to get to market?
Yeah.
Was there any aspect of that year where you were just like, holy cow, wasn't expecting this?
Yeah, no, there was definitely a lot of that, and I think part of it is working with suppliers, manufacturers, then having to figure out the social media marketing part of it as well, and then just the deodorant itself. I had done that whole process, like I mentioned, took probably a little bit over a year. But even before that, I was reading about the products to begin with, and the difference between deodorant and antiperspirant is deodorant is more of a cosmetic, so it falls under a completely different category. Antiperspirant is actually in the over-the-counter category, so closer to basically being like Tylenol and all of these other things than it is a deodorant. So big misconception there, and the idea is, we have sweat glands for a reason. So we're not here to, try to disrupt the, endocrine system and, stop you from sweating. It's not ideal. You're not supposed to do that. I go to the gym to sweat. I just don't want to smell bad. Right. You want to sweat it out and get rid of the toxins and get a good workout in. You just don't want to smell bad. And so, and also you want to smell fresh too. So that's why we've made these scents. We've decided to go with, eucalyptus, ocean, and coconut and vanilla.
Yeah, I'll be putting this to the test today because it came in yesterday.
Yeah.
So I put it on, even though I put my normal deodorant on already.
Yeah.
It smelled very nice, by the way.
Oh, appreciate it.
So you passed the smell check.
Awesome.
But I'll be curious. I'm going to the gym this afternoon, and I'll be I'll be curious to see like just if I notice anything different, in terms of like, I actually don't know if the one I've been using the same one for years, and I don't know if it's an anti-sweat one or an antiperspirant or not. So I'll have to look at it. But yeah, if I'm more smelly tthan normal by the time this workout's over, this episode's not going live.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm
Sounds
kidding.
good. No, I know. No, and what's interesting is people at the gym so far, they've all kind of gotten a different scent. I know you got the eucalyptus one here.
Yep.
One of the other guys had told me he got coconut and vanilla, and he said he just loves it.
Nice.
He had that one, and he actually tried two of them. So he tried coconut, vanilla, and ocean, and he said coconut and vanilla was his absolute favorite. So right now I'm really trying to get a better understanding of what my customers' preferences are.
Yeah.
And I'm finding both men and women are ordering the same scents. I thought some might be more leaning towards the women, or some might be leaning more towards the men, but it's been completely mixed, which is a great thing. But yeah, and the age range is huge too. It's a good age range, and but still trying to get a better understanding of it too.
What's the age range so far? Do you get that data?
Yeah, I do on my Shopify. So on the website that we're powered. So we're powered by Shopify on our website. So it can tell us the customers, information and whatnot. Of course, what they'll share. But even just from a geography, just from that standpoint, knowing the states too is a huge part of it. Knowing that people are in LA are ordering, people in Florida, Texas, some in New York too. And just some other random places that I'm just shipping it out to.
Yeah.
So it's been great, and there's a lot more to come. Exciting stuff to come to soon.
Is there any state that has had a spike in sales so far, or any city?
So actually, we had an event recently. We were a sponsor for this Miami boot camp event, and so it had all these incredible women who are influencers over there, and so it was a private event that they had, and we were sponsored there.
Nice.
And it was really big for us. We got to share the space with some great brands. And it was a big event. And some of these girls have, one of them had like 2.6 million followers on Instagram. One had like 800,000. Another one is like a Miami Dolphins cheerleader. So really cool, and they're absolutely incredible. And definitely want to do more of those too. That got a lot of, that got us a lot of sales and a lot of traffic on our website. So that was big. That was big for us.
Where do you think your biggest marketing push is going to be over the next 6 to 12 months?
I think we're going to say a lot of it right now. We're staying exclusively online, so we don't want to go into retail, into actual retail. What we are available on Walmart.com. So online retail is a little bit different. We're fine with that for now, but yeah, we're going to be exclusively online right now. So.
In terms of marketing, in the sense though of like sponsoring more events, social media, word of mouth / grassroots, is it sort of an even mix of everything, or do you have one area that you think you're going to put more emphasis to over others?
Word of mouth is definitely really important, right? So when I'll approach people at the gym, I'll approach people when I'm downtown myself, and anybody who's involved in this, I tell them, go approach as many people about this as you can. But online is there's just no way you can reach the amount of people in person that you can versus online.
Right.
I know if I go up to 300 people today, which I could do, but it might be
hard.
It might be a little bit of a challenge, but let's say I do that compared to, online, you can reach 3,000 people. 5,000 people, and it would take, just some ad spend and, the proper tools in place and right timing, but you just can't do that in person. And if you can, it would take way longer too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I did. There's something I was pushing for the podcast a couple months ago, and I think over a 72-hour period, I called or texted close to 600 people, because I knew that the chances of success of me reaching out to people that know me personally and would have buy-in versus trying to reach out to strangers would be a lot higher. And dude, it was a very interesting exercise to go to, trying to contact almost 600 people in a 3-day period. Yeah. However, it did yield great results, but it's also just not sustainable, doing that amount of cold calling, essentially.
Right.
It is for some businesses, the smile and dial is just the way to sell certain products.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that phrase exists.
Yep.
But also, dude, it was exhausting. I can't keep up with that.
Yeah. It's, I in the beginning right now, I mean, I'll do everything possible. I'll definitely reach out to people. I'll give them a call. I'll send them emails. I'll do it in person, online. So really, we're just trying to get, and anybody who's been a part of it as well, they've I know you gave us a shout out too on Instagram, so appreciate that as well. But all of that is very valuable, and it all adds up, and so it's great to have not just myself involved, but a lot of friends and family support that as well too.
Why is aluminum a bad thing to be in products?
So the problem is it's going beneath the surface. It's no longer just a topical use. It's actually so there's something called EDCs. So they're endocrine disrupting chemicals, and so we are free of EDCs. And so that can obviously disrupt hormones and whatnot. And like I mentioned earlier, for antiperspirants, it's going beneath the surface, and that's what stops the sweat glands from actually, stops you from sweating. And so you'll still sweat, but you're not smelling. And so you want it to remain topical use. And so that's a huge part of it for us. But aluminum and all of these things are not meant to go into your body. I mean, that's just, just not good at all.
And would it be the same answer for, is it paraben? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Does that sort of have the same similar negative effects as aluminum?
Yeah, and the problem is a lot of people are unaware that these are even issues. I mean, some of them now they're catching on and realizing that they are, but I'll have people come up to me and say, well, I've used those and I don't see it being a problem. And I said, well, it's your exposure over time. So right now it's not a problem, right? But it probably will be in the next few years if you keep doing it. So that's a part of it as well. So people, think, at first couple of times or first few times or first couple of years, hey, I'm not seeing any nasty side effects. And it's like, oh, well, it takes a while, right? I mean, it's not going to be right away. It's sort of a pernicious effect that it has on your body. So
pernicious.
Yeah.
What does that word mean?
Just a slow and subtle harmful effect.
Pernicious. There's my
Pernicious,
word
yeah.
for the day. I mean, and you could use that, almost use, any analogy that would be true too, in the
Right.
sense of like, if you work out for an hour and a half a day, that's going to be objectively good for you over time.
Yeah.
You might not see major differences in your health from the first workout,
Right.
but by the time you've been doing it for 3 years, you're going to see effects. Whereas if you spend an hour and a half drinking 7 days a week,
Yeah.
you might not have much except for a bad hangover after day
Yeah.
one. But if you do that every day for 3 years,
Yeah.
your organs are going to be aching.
Oh, for sure.
They're
For
gonna
sure.
be
No doubt
begging
about
for a
that.
break.
100%. Yeah.
Who's part of the team right now? Is it just you, or do you have a few people that are helping out?
So I have a few people who are helping out with the social media marketing. I'm reaching out to some people who are kind of been beneficial in that. So having some conversations involved right now. I'm 100% owner. I'm the only owner involved in it, but I do have a great team of people that I reach out to and ask questions, and contractor work. I'll pay them to do some things for me and whatnot. And
Yep.
we also actually have something really cool on our website, the Partners and Ambassadors page. So you can become an ambassador. So if you apply, you drop your social media handle on there, and if you're approved, you'll get $3 back on every order that somebody used your discount code for. So for example, if your discount code is, David 10, and people use David 10 for every order that was placed, they would get $3 back. So it's a cool thing that we offer as well.
That's cool. Yeah, that's very cool. What do you look for in a partner?
Well, this
Or
is
an ambassador.
so the part, yeah, so in the ambassador part, I think a big part of how I accept people into the program is if they have a great social media, marketing, a following, and great following on their page, and they're very active. And also that they want to be a part of the brand too. That's also a big thing as well. That they really resonate with the product and they can stand behind it. For me, that's why I said earlier, I have to be able to, for me to stand behind something and support it, I have to really 110% be involved and, really believe in it for me to do so.
Did you have to do any financing for this, or did you bootstrap most of it yourself?
No, I bootstrapped it myself. So far, so good. It's a lot, but the way that I look at it is it's an investment. So just like, if you're investing in, the stock market, or if you're investing in anything, it's an investment, and it just pays off and over time. And this is part of the process, right? This is just what you sign up for when you decide to start a business. You go into it, you understand that you have to be able to finance things, and that not all of it will be, work out your way necessarily.
Yep.
But then if you're doing things the right way, things pick up and whatnot. And so fortunately, everything's going great so far. So
Have you had any moments or days of doubt yet?
not days of doubt, but days of where I'm like, damn, like this is a lot, that for sure. That for sure. No, I always go into everything expecting to win. I never go into anything expecting to lose. I always, when I invest, my time or money, I expect that I'm going to see a great return. I think that's just how I've always thought. I always try to find a way to win, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. Let's do a quick analysis over a real life case study.
Sure.
I've brought this up one other time for sure, about 20 episodes or so ago, and I think that's the only one. But there is a individual here in Austin, Texas, who wanted to start an athletic clothing brand.
Okay.
And so this individual was going to start with T-shirts only, and they came up with their designs, their logo. They built a website. They wanted to stamp all the shirts to order, so they started with 1,000 T-shirts for their inventory. They went and got the stamp, and the website goes live, social media page goes live, and over the first 2 weeks, I don't know what their expectation was, but they probably sold anywhere from like 8 to 20 T-shirts. So it was pretty minimal over the first 14 days. This individual had much bigger expectations and thought that sales would go like this, and that the 1,000 would just be gone before he even knew what to do with. And when that didn't happen, he ended up taking the website down, taking the social media down, and now he's sitting on 980 T-shirts and doing nothing with them. And so if there's any entrepreneurs that are listening this morning that are sort of in that same boat, maybe they haven't gone as drastic as he did where they shut down the business,
Right.
but they're just very discouraged that it's not taking off as quickly as they hoped it would. What would you say to those types of folks?
No, at that point, you have to see that's an issue because you have to be willing to hustle and put in the work. If you are sitting on inventory, if you've sold, let's say, so in that example, they've sold, the 8 to 20 and they still have like 900, plus left, you need to go out there and hustle. You need to go sell them because they're not going to sell themselves,
Right.
right? I don't care if they're not coming from the website. Like, go in person, give some away to people, like have people wearing them too. Be willing to part with, free samples and things like that for an investment because somebody else will see somebody wearing it and they'll compliment them and they'll say, hey, where did you get that shirt from? So you have to be able to, you can't just give up like that. You definitely have to be able to, keep working, putting in and trying to find a way. You have to find a way to win, period. You have to get the sale somehow. And whether it's going to be online or in person, you have to give it sufficient time to. But no, I mean, I can definitely understand why, somebody might have the expectation it goes that hey, I'm expecting to sell all of them at once. But if you're
Yep.
brand new and you're just now launching, I mean, it's just totally normal for that to happen. I mean, it's just, you have to just, find a way.
Yeah, especially when you think of products such as like deodorant or t-shirts.
Yeah.
Deodorant, there's a ton of companies right now that have
Yeah.
the bulk of that market share.
Yeah.
Athletic clothing brands, how many are there these days?
Yeah.
Dozens, if
Yeah.
not hundreds. So
Yeah.
when you're entering a market too, I think you almost have to expect that if you get an overnight success of some sort, that's almost a miracle, and then just be grateful and
Right.
move on.
Right.
But you also need to sort of set yourself up and realize when I have 600 competitors that all have market share, and I'm the newest one to the market.
Right.
There's going to be some grit involved for the first 6 to 24 months.
There's always going to be grit involved for sure. And I would also say that, for example, the question I would have for that person is, let's say if they had 1,000 shirts and the product did blow up and a lot of people were going to the website, what happens if 10,000 people visit your website and 10,000 people order? How are you going to fulfill that?
Right.
Now that's a different issue,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be prepared for these kinds of things. You have to have inventory and supplies ready to go. And you have to also be comfortable with knowing that, hey, some of it might be idle for a little bit, but if you're doing the right things, like I said, things should be moving and whatnot.
Do you remember the date that you officially started selling?
So I remember by the day. Do you mean like the actual date, or do you mean just like the day of?
Rough time about when could anyone
Yeah.
find the website and buy a product? What month and year?
This was February. This
Of
is
this
February.
year?
Yes, of this year.
So
Yes.
so we're a month in.
Yeah, a month, almost. Yeah, yeah. So it was pretty early on in February, but yeah.
How has your first month been?
Oh, it's been fantastic. Absolutely great. So far, we put a lot of time and effort and work in before, so I was really prepared for, a lot of things. But obviously, there was new things that happened that were brand new too. But still learning as we're going too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more. We have a lot more to accomplish and do. So we're just getting started. So if you're tuning in now, we're just getting started.
Were sales above, below, or about where you expected them to be for the first 30 days?
So for the first 30, so actually this is what I'll say. So they were about where I wanted them to be. But then with this big event that we had as well, they really just kind of skyrocketed a lot. And
Yeah.
so we want to now be able to recreate that experience and have more events like that where we have a lot more exposure from these influencers and, great people involved. And there were a lot of great sponsors at the event too. So we got to share space with some of those brands as well, which are also really cool. So you can check us out, obviously, on our Instagram page.
Yep.
But yeah.
Do you see a Shark Tank on the horizon for you?
I would say not right now. Not right now. And the reason is, one, obviously, it's just way too early. But apart from that, I think I want to really just figure it out myself right now, and where I want to go with it, and if we want to extend our product line or not. So it might take a while, depending on how we grow and at what rate we're growing, if we decide to extend that product line. But for right now, it's strictly deodorant,
Yep.
but really good quality.
Where would you like to see this go?
Wow, I wouldn't want to put a ceiling on it. I want it to just keep going and going, ideally. But as long as if everything is going the right way, I think it ends up being more than just a deodorant. It can be like personal products. It could be, body wash and other things like that as well. I could extend the line there. But yeah, I'm really just excited, to see where it'll end up and what we'll end up doing with it.
Where'd the name come from?
The name. I honestly was writing down so many different names before, and I kind of wanted this sort of, relaxing and, sort of name. And when I was jotting down different names, I listed probably, I don't know, hundreds of different names. And then I cut the list, and then I rearranged the list, and I just eventually was picking it, and I just said, you know what, this just sounds great. I think this is exactly what I'm shooting for here. So Serenity Falls Deodorant, we just stuck with it.
I like it, man. I
Yeah.
mean, for me, I have a lot of friends back on the West Coast who are in
Yeah.
AA, so I'm pretty familiar with the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah.
And do you know it by chance?
I'm not, no, I do not.
It's a God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so even if you don't believe in God, because I know that term can be triggering for some people,
Sure.
I still like the idea of just, there's some things I can change that, I need to find the courage within myself to take action over those.
Right.
And for the things I have no control over, how do I try to find some serenity around those items that are just beyond my control? And
Yeah.
so when you told me the name, I immediately was just like, oh, Serenity, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
I love Serenity. I love being at peace. I like the name already. So
Yeah,
I was on board from day one.
Yeah, and I think that perfectly. I think I might have actually have heard that before, to be honest. That kind of reminded me. But no, I'm glad that it's all aligned, and that'll get people involved for different reasons. And but yeah, no, that's fantastic.
What was one of the top contenders for the names that didn't have Serenity or Falls in it? Do you remember?
I don't. I've completely, my focus is
They're
just
gone.
Yeah, I'm not focused
Brain
on
dump.
them. I'm only focused on Serenity Falls at this point.
Yeah.
Serenity Falls Deodorant. Yep.
So I did a quick search over the top 3 things that people are Googling in terms of entrepreneurship. And I'm curious to see how you would answer these questions. Let me find them real quick.
Sure.
The first one is around the entrepreneurial journey and work-life balance. Many young entrepreneurs, and side hustlers struggle with burnout, and so they are looking for. They know they're in a society that involves active hustling, whether it's startups, side gigs, or traditional careers. And so I guess what people are looking for is how do you manage your time and energy while you've been building this brand?
Discipline. That's the number one. That is the number one. And I truly believe that I have an elite level of discipline. And the reason I believe that is because I've been able to work a full-time job. I've been able to, and other people do this as well, so it's not just me, but just talking about myself here, work full-time, get an MBA, figure out how to launch my business, maintain my workout, my fasting. So I'll do a 16 to 18-hour fast a day, still make time to go downtown and have fun and get away from everything as well too. But it's discipline. You have to have a routine in place, and you have to be consistent. The consistency is also the second part of it as well. Very important to be consistent. And if you make it a part of your lifestyle, then it's no longer, it just doesn't feel like a routine. It just feels like a part of your life. And that's why I don't use the words like diet. I'm going on a diet. That to me, I don't think I've ever said that. But I that's why I practice intermittent fasting, is because it's just a part of my lifestyle, and going to the gym is a part of that. And so, but that's what it takes for those entrepreneurs trying to balance their time and their energy and everything. Discipline and consistency, and definitely take a moment and obviously relax too. Some of those things are relaxing. Going to the gym for me is not exhausting. For me, it's, even though I'm like working out and breaking a sweat in there, for me it's just I enjoy it. I kind of get away from all the other stuff, and I can focus on myself in there, and so it's really nice.
I know there's another entrepreneur at the same gym that we go to, and one of the ways that he stays disciplined is he calendars every second of his day, from his gym time, his phone calls related to
Yeah.
his business. Everything is in there, and I've looked at his calendar, and it's color coded, it's organized, and
Yeah.
it's way more organized than I could ever be.
Yeah.
Do you have any practical tools like that you've used to keep yourself disciplined?
No, because I've held myself, at this point, I've held myself accountable, really accountable. So I don't have to necessarily micromanage it down to that point. I know that if I don't do it, I'll just be blaming myself. Like, okay, why did I not do this? So, and I don't want to do that. So another way of doing it is also front loading, the work. So getting it done early as opposed to later. I prefer to get things done early and out of the way. That way, later on, I'm free to do whatever I want to do.
Yep.
So the worst thing is if you're not doing stuff in, let's say, the first half, and then later on you have to go do all the work. You're like, okay, now I have to go do all this after I just had this entire day. So I just prefer getting things done early. For me, that's just the way I do things.
Yeah.
I like having the night and the evening to myself, and I'll still be working on other projects, or I'll still be working on the business side of it. That really doesn't stop. But at least then I have some time to kind of dive into whatever it is I want to at that point.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that, specifically the front loading, because I have another friend who he feels like he does his best work from about 9 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And he will be the first person to say, this is not a rule. I
Yeah.
would never tell an entrepreneur you should work from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Yeah, yeah.
For him, it's that he would prefer to sleep until noon or 1. He has a really slow start to his day. The first thing he does is he gets his dog, pours a cup of coffee, and he goes in the backyard and he just sits in complete silence for anywhere from like 20 minutes to an hour. He doesn't book any appointments. That way he knows I can just sit in my chair without having to look at the clock, and can just start my day with just peace, silence, caffeine, watching my dog chase the birds. And so it's funny, man. Like it's almost seems like for certain aspects of running a business, you just have to find what works for you. And if you try to fit yourself in someone else's box, that could be a way to set yourself up for failure almost.
Yeah, you have to figure out what's the most optimal for you, for sure. And there really isn't there isn't necessarily a silver bullet for it, right? There's not going to be a rule that applies to everybody. It's just you have to test it yourself. And as far as what time of the day, that is totally depends on, I guess, what you're doing, and it depends on the person too and whatnot. But being able to be consistent, having a routine, whatever that is, whether it's waking up really early or sleeping in or doing whatever, just something that you can be consistent with. That's a huge part of it, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Second question that people specifically in the U.S. between the ages of 18 and 34 are searching for as it relates to building a brand right now is confidence, fitness, and lifestyle. Personal care, fitness, and confidence all go hand in hand. The question that they're looking for is, how do you think taking care of yourself through fitness, grooming, and mindset plays into success in both business and social life? And the reason they are asking this is because young entrepreneurs are heavily invested in self-improvement, whether through fitness, self-care, or mental resilience. They want practical takeaways they can apply to feel better and perform better. And I thought this is the perfect question for you, because your life does touch so many of these things. So again, the question is, how do you think taking care of yourself plays into success in both business and social life?
This I'll answer with one of the quotes from the 48 Laws of Power. And the quote is, everything is judged by its appearance. So never get lost in the crowd. And then the second part of it is stand out. So the reason why that's so important is because I honestly believe that's true. Everything is judged by its appearance. People that don't know you, people that view your business or anything. And it's important to take care of yourself and be presentable, and to walk into a room. People do treat you differently. I like to, dress nice. I like to wear nice clothes, and I like to wear nice things. And so I feel that does have an impact. I know people might say, oh, it's material, it's this and that. But if you walk into a room wearing a suit, if you've ever seen the show Suits,
Oh, I love that show.
So yeah, exactly. So now think about this: the main character, right, Harvey Specter. When he walks into the room, obviously he's dressed up, he's looking sharp, slick. This is just an example here, but he walks into the room. Now, if he was just wearing, shorts and just, some, relaxed clothing, he probably wouldn't have the same power, in some way. So I feel like that's definitely important, especially if you're in business or if you want to be presentable when you're going out and you're meeting people. You should have that, and also it shows a level of self-respect and shows respect for other people too, that you're willing to, sort of look fresh, clean, and presentable for others as well. So I think that's why people now are becoming more aware of that and wanting to say, okay, I want to be more professional, and look a certain way, whatnot.
Yeah, you just reminded me of I showed up to the meeting with that investor, and there is another potential entrepreneur on the call as well. And I remember that for me, this is how I show up 99% of the time.
Yeah.
But for that call, I had the camera right here on my seat, right in the middle. I wanted the background to be the studio. I signed into the call 10 minutes early. I did dress up because it is I'm taking the audience into mind. This is a potential investor. So even if it's a more casual podcast, how do I want him to see me the second he turns on his screen?
Exactly.
Am I going to be first, or is he, in terms of who starts the call? And so I'm thinking about all these different things. And the other entrepreneur, let's call him, that was on the call, it was interesting because he showed up a couple minutes late. When he turned his camera on, he was eating a slice of pizza. He was dressed in a t-shirt and baseball cap. As soon as he finished his pizza, he took he busted out his vape and he took a hit off that. And so it was one of those things where it was funny how differently him and I showed up.
Yeah.
I like pizza. I smoke from time to time, but when I'm jumping onto a call with a potential investor, the pizza and the vape are not going to be anywhere near me. 100%. And so, and to your point, even I remember thinking, like, I don't care what your podcast is about. If I'm an investor and I show up and you're eating a slice of pizza, the first question in my head is going to be, what was like your expectation for this meeting? Like, it really threw me off. And so maybe there's a lesson right there. It's just think about how you show up. Eat your pizza after or before the call, but not when the call is starting.
Yeah, definitely not when the call is starting. Yeah, that's a huge thing for me. And and that's why I've always wanted to, even when I'm, stepping out, I always like to dress nicely, especially when I'm leaving the house, or if I'm going to the gym, I like wearing nice athletic clothes. I feel good. I feel better. You feel better about yourself, and then you feel like others definitely appreciate it too. And and that's just, and I think that's why now, like you mentioned, people are searching more about that these days.
Yeah. Third and final thing that that is being Googled right now is, in terms of entrepreneurship, is money and investing for the future. Are there any financial mistakes that you see young adults making, and what's one simple money move that could set them up for success? And the reason why this question is being asked is because many in this younger demographic are figuring out personal finance, investing, and wealth building while navigating things like student loans, careers, and major life decisions. So again, the question was, from what you've observed, are there any financial mistakes or pitfalls that you see young adults stepping into?
Absolutely. I feel like there's a lot, and I think part of it is, from a personal standpoint, a lot of people are just buying things just to buy them, just frivolous things that aren't even going to move the needle for them. I have no problem spending, money or a lot of money on, experiences or trips or really nice things, but those experiences or trips or items or whatever are going to move the needle for me in some type of way. Right now I'm spending a lot more on my business, so that's kind of moving the needle for me. But when people are just buying, things just off of Amazon just to buy it, and it's just sort of waste money, and they're doing that on a daily basis. And so when they look at their year spend, they'll wonder, where did my money go? And they don't have much to show for it. That's probably part of the reason, is they're not self-aware of what they're spending on exactly. And so that's why I say always spend it on things that are valuable for you. So don't worry about, so if, for example, if it's a nice pair of shoes, like, go spend it, because if you really appreciate those, you'll feel happy, you'll feel good about yourself wearing it. If it's going to a cool, country, or if it's going to visit a new city, go do that, because that'll be a memory for you, and that'll be something that's worth it. But I don't know, if it's just something that's just kind of useless, or you're just dropping like $30 on something just to, do it. It's just, I don't know. I just don't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I enjoy, spending on things that are valuable and, that are, kind of move the needle for me.
Do you personally do a lot of investing?
I do. I've been investing in, a lot of, public, so publicly traded companies, so public equities, stocks and things like that. I've been doing that for about a little over 5 years, 5, 6 years. Yeah, something like that.
What's your personal investment philosophy?
I've stuck with the exact same companies that I've been investing in for the past 6 years. Haven't changed a single one. So I've stuck with the same brand name companies. I call my portfolio the Big 12 because I've got 12 stocks, brand name stocks.
Okay.
And I decided at that particular time to invest in them. And fortunately, things are going really well. But that's a huge part of it. And learned a lot from Warren Buffett. He has so much great information that he's very vocal about online and a lot of those videos over time. So, and also understanding where you're putting your money into and what companies you're investing in. That'll play a huge part for sure. I'm definitely not going to invest into a company or something that I have no idea what's going on, or just because a friend told me, hey bro, like you should go, buy this. I'll say, I think I'm good. Like, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people who tell me, a lot of, friends of mine, close friends of mine, and they're coming from a good place, obviously, but
Yep.
they'll say, oh, you should pour a bunch of, money into this because, I'm seeing this crazy return, and I'm like, I think I'll be fine. If I understand, if I do some research, I'll consider it. But, that's kind of my mindset going into it.
For those 12 companies, did you have any kind of criteria that allowed them to become part of your portfolio that you look for?
Yeah, they're companies that everybody's heard of, but they are brand name. And also what I did was I'm not concentrated in just one industry. So I have, tech stocks, I have banks, I have, other, companies like Tesla and, other great ones on there as well. Not financial advice here to invest in anything,
Of course, yeah.
but I did I sort of did whatever homework that you can do, and then afterwards, you just hold, you keep investing and you hold over a period of time. So, a lot of people, I've talked to you about it with some people who have asked me. They said, hey, well, after 3 months, I'm looking at it and I'm down, and I'm like, well, that's a perfect time to buy more. Like,
Yeah.
that's the perfect time to buy more, and so you have to have the stomach for it too.
Yes.
That's part of it as well. You definitely have to have the stomach for it. You definitely have to have the cash for it, and have the time horizon too. I started when I was a little younger than I was now, obviously, but I have a long horizon and time to go. So for me, I'm just holding on to it, and I'll continue to do so.
Have you ever done any options or puts trading or
No, I have
That's
not.
a whole different ball
Whole
game
different
right
ball
there.
game. I'll let the experts stick to it on. I know there's a lot of people who have seen tremendous returns on that and whatnot, but I just stick to the long term holding. I'm not going to do the day trading thing.
Yeah.
Not going to do any of that.
That's fair. Did you ever jump on Clubhouse? It's an app that it came and went in like an 8-month
I
period
don't
during
think so.
COVID.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So essentially, what the app was it was live conversation. So
Okay.
it was an invite only.
Okay.
So I think I got like one invite a month, and so I could invite you if you wanted to jump
Okay,
on it.
cool.
So then you can get in, and they have all these different rooms or all these
Yeah.
different clubhouses, and one could be about finances, one could be about medical marijuana. So the categories are everywhere, right? And so I found this one room where it was day traders, and I would just hop in there for fun, and I'd have them on in my headphones for 2 or 3
Yeah.
hours, and if I had questions, I'd raise my hand and jump in and talk with them. But yeah, man, talk about needing some stomach and some grit, because there'd be
Yeah.
some days where they'd sign on and they'd usually kick off the day with like, all right, everyone, give us your wins and losses from yesterday. And people would be like, man, I lost $12,000 yesterday. And you do, even though you know that the win is going to come the next day, that is still a loss that you have to mitigate and be okay with. You have to be fine with that kind of loss, or else day trading is not for you.
Day trading, and even when you're gambling too. I mean, it's almost it's almost like gambling in a way. And so if you're out in Vegas, I like playing roulette. So that's one of my games. I've played blackjack before, but it's just, I don't know, man. It's just, there's just too many. It's a lot of hands are keep coming and going. So
Yep.
I was like, I'll just take the time and just play some roulette, and I've done way better doing that. And part of it is, it's really all luck. With roulette, it's really all luck, to be completely honest. There is no advantage or skill or anything that you can learn. It's just playing the board and hoping things work out for you. It's purely entertainment. But you have to be comfortable with taking losses, and you have to almost, you have to almost be like disconnected in some way. You can't
Yeah.
view it as your money or like, oh man, like that was like a lot. You almost can't do that because
Yep.
if you do, then it's probably not for you. And I think that's why um, business in general and a lot of like high pressure things are for me because I have the stomach for it and I can really push things in and then, be comfortable with where it goes and know that um, I'll get it back and in one way or another.
Yeah. Did you get into crypto at all?
I did not. I
Why
did
not?
not. Part of it, I didn't fully, so let me say this. I did invest in a coin a few years back and I held on to it. So when I invested, it went to zero. So the coin like went to zero basically. And then I think like 3 or 4 years later, the coin came back up to where my money was now I had literally just gotten whatever it was back that I'd put into it. So I just pulled out of it. But part of it is because I just don't fully understand the entire thing and I haven't done the homework or the 10,000 hours the way that other people have. I know people are saying, okay, get on board and, do this and whatnot. But for me, if I have not done that, it's just, I'm going to stick to, the principles of how I invest in things.
Yeah, no, that's fair and that's good. Um, before I ask you one of these specific questions, I'm just going to say a term and I'd be curious what your thoughts are. Just first thing that
Yeah.
comes to mind when I say it. Are you ready?
Sure.
Mental health.
Social media.
Why did your mind go there?
Because a lot of people spend their time on social media in a day, and if you actually think about it, it seems to have an impact on people's mental health in a positive way and a negative way. It's kind of both ends of the spectrum, and I say really positive because people feel fortunate to be able to share their experiences and share their businesses online, but I guess some people complain online about seeing others and they feel like, oh, they're not exactly there yet or they're not in the position to, so they feel discouraged about it. So I feel that there's definitely some sort of connection with mental health and social media now more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the top three questions that men are asking around mental health on the internet these days is how do I stop feeling lonely and build better relationships? What are your thoughts around that one?
I would say making an effort. Part of it is making an effort. A lot of times people dwell on whatever issue it is that they're going through. They, admire the problem as opposed to, trying to find a solution. My one thing I always tell people is if they know what the problem is, they've solved half of it, right? If you're aware of what the problem is, 50% of it's already solved. Now you have to
Yes.
just, actually execute on it. But yeah, no, you have to make an effort towards anything. So if you're dealing with these things, it's good to be aware of whatever you're dealing with. And now try to, if someone is, lonely or they're trying to find new friends or a social group, then go out there and do it. Like nothing is stopping you from, unless something is physically stopping you from doing so, there should be no reason. You literally go walk into anywhere, a coffee shop, a bookstore, downtown, go to a bar, you can go to the gym,
Yep.
people. And so finding those groups and finding those places that you can really, um, that align with your beliefs and some of the things that you're involved in will add a lot of value for you for sure.
We sort of danced around this one, but I wanted to ask it just because it came up in my search. One of the top three mental health questions that teenagers are asking: how do I deal with school stress and pressure?
School stress and pressure, so I would say when I was in school, I was playing a lot of sports too, and I had a great, social circle as well. So, having that, being able to channel that energy into exercise and when you're with your friends is a great way of not just feeling overwhelmed by school. So staying, having those options is a huge part of it for sure. Because if you're only like, I can't imagine if somebody was only doing school, like if they went to school from, even though my hours were probably, even worse because, there's some days, you'd wake up at like 5 a.m. and you probably wouldn't leave school till 6, 7 if you had practice after school and before. Um, but yeah, no, just be involved in other stuff apart from just that. That way you're not just putting everything into it and you're not just overwhelmed all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Um, Artificial intelligence. Are you utilizing that to build your brand and your business at all?
Yeah, definitely using it to get a better understanding of, what's going on. And if I read something that's kind of, complicated or a bit heavy for me, I definitely, will just say, hey, try to explain this to me in simpler terms or, whatnot. But no, it's really a great tool. I mean, AI is, just so powerful. And I also believe that what's available to us right now is and versus what they're holding on to a much more powerful version of it. And I think it's sort of like the iPhone, what they did with the iPhones. They slowly released each model, right? But we already knew they had the front-facing camera long before they released it,
Yep.
right? They were probably just milking all the other ones before, and then saying, "Oh, the Retina display," and hey, now we're finally got the front-facing camera. I'm like, you probably had that the same year, you released the other five, but
Yeah, yeah.
so I think it's probably a similar thing they're doing with that as well.
Anything you're excited about for the future of AI that you personally want to harness down the road?
Um, well, I still, as long as I can harness it the way that I have so far of using it on a daily basis. I mean, I can have it, generate and create a workout routine for me, even
Yeah.
though right now I've got my own, but it's just, as long as that option exists, I think that's good enough, for me,
Yeah.
at least for right now.
You're very well traveled.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
when did you start traveling overseas? Where'd the interest come from? Why have you kept doing it? Talk to me about that for a minute.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to been able to travel around the world. Been to 30 plus countries, I believe.
Woo!
Yeah, so definitely a lot. And my family has taken me on a lot of great vacations and visited a lot of great countries with them. So, like I said, feel very fortunate about that. But it's something that is an absolute must. I mean, if I'm going to spend on something, or if anybody is going to, traveling is a huge thing. It just adds a lot of value and culture and experience into your life, and I think you can just you just learn a lot of great things.
In being that you have visited over 30 countries, has there been anything that you've observed about other ways that people live that you've tried to implement in your own life when you come back to the States?
Yeah, you were, in all these countries, people live very differently. And there's obviously a lot of similarities too, right, of what's going on and whatnot. But you really appreciate what's going on in your own life, in your own personal life, when you see what happens in other countries. And you're also sometimes wondering, like, you're looking around and wondering, like, wow, everybody's on like leisure. Everybody's just, relaxed and just drinking and just seems like nobody's at work here. No, when I was in France, we went to south of France, and everybody's just drinking, their sunglasses on, they're just relaxing. I'm like, I don't think anybody works here.
Yeah.
I think they just, but they're all happy, and they're all, they're in great shape, and they're eating good food. It's all clean, clean food, and it's sun shining, and people are very social. So they really value that, and no, I highly recommend it.
There is an interview I was listening to where someone moved to Spain for a good couple of years,
Yeah.
and one of the comments that he was saying was that they're very relaxed when it comes to their schedules. So it's
Yeah.
not, hey, do you want to get dinner at 7? It's more so, hey, do you want to get dinner tonight? And then it's just a very casual, like maybe we all get together at David's place and we
Yeah.
have our first drink there. And then
Yeah.
when we're ready, we'll move on to the restaurant and we'll be very relaxed, just hang out there. And when we're ready to move on to the next thing, we do that. And he's like, dude, the very relaxed, like we don't have to stick to a schedule. We're just gonna move on when we're ready to move on.
Yeah.
I thought, man, that sounds so nice. It makes me sort of want to move to Spain for a
Yeah,
year.
yeah, you definitely get, yeah, no, for sure, and you can definitely get lost in the in that as well. Like, time can just sort of fly by, and if you're having a good time, time usually does fly. So I can see why people enjoy that for sure.
One thing I was curious about to ask you that you put down on the form was the party scene in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the party scene in Austin, Texas, and just kind of all over too, not just exclusively Austin, but it's great. There's a lot of great lounges that have opened up, a lot of great cocktail lounges. I enjoy those a lot for sure. So I definitely can't go to the same, college bars. I just can't do that nowadays. So you might see me in one of these nice places here in Austin.
Is
somehow.
that the main way you like to get your social interactions in? Is
Yeah,
hit
for
up the
sure.
nightlife?
Yeah, the nightlife is definitely a big part. I mean, during the day I'm working, so
Right.
I have work going on, and then I'm working out, and then I'm working on my business. So I'm pretty, tight schedule during the week and and at least during the day for sure. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
Well, Vic, what else should we cover? Is there anything else you wanted to chirp about this morning that we haven't brought up yet?
No, not necessarily. I think we covered a good amount for sure.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
What's the website? Where can people buy Serenity Falls deodorant right now?
So on our website, serenity-falls-deodorant.com. And then on Instagram, you can visit our Instagram page as well. So definitely give us a follow on there. And, you can message the account, the social media page, very responsive on there as well. But yeah, going directly to our website is the best way possible. We are available online at walmart.com too. So you can check us out on there. But definitely go to our website and if you want to join potentially join one of our ambassador programs, go on our website and just apply.
Hell yeah. How'd you get onto walmart.com?
It takes a while to do that, but just kind of followed the process of, getting, applying, and yeah, it takes time, but I don't know if I have like an easy answer as to how I did it, but it takes a little bit of time to kind of get involved with it. But it turned out that was actually one of the better online retailers for us to work with, because we noticed on, Amazon, there's a lot more fees involved. But we'll eventually be on Amazon as well. But at least for right now, we're probably going to stick with what we're doing right now.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So I have a tradition that I've been playing around with where I'll take questions that I've heard from podcasts that I listen to, and I really like the question, and I ask it of my guests to get your take on the question and see how you would answer it.
Sure.
So one of the questions that I heard recently that I think would be good for you is, when have you been happiest in your life? And you may define happiness any way you like.
I'm happiest right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm the happiest I've been right now, and I want to keep it that way. And I think it's honestly a choice. I think you wake up, every day is a brand new day, and you wake up and decide whether or not you want to be happy. And even if you're not, for some reason, that still shouldn't stop you from doing whatever it is that you want to do. You have to be fearless, and you have to be confident, and you have to be, willing to just get out there, and that'll make you happy. Taking on challenges and doing new things, experiencing new things will make you happy. And but I do believe that part of that is a choice for sure.
Yeah. I will say that with the podcast, man, I feel like I'm at the happiest I've ever been in my life.
For sure.
And I'm working, quote unquote, working more hours than I ever have in my life.
Right.
But at the same time, I have more satisfaction, pride, happiness, joy, sense of accomplishment, direction, purpose. Like all these things start falling in place when you start chasing something that you're really passionate about.
Sure.
So it's an interesting dynamic of like, just all this work, and I'm also like super happy. But I just wanted to agree with everything that you just said. I think that's a strong closing thought.
For sure. No, and again, I appreciate you having me on. This has been a blast for sure. And we're excited, and there's a lot more to come soon. So
hell yeah.
Stay tuned.
Well, Vic, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. I really appreciate it. To the audience, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. If you got anything out of this episode, whether it was about business, entrepreneurship, mental health, anything at all, please do me a small favor, which takes none of your money and only about 60 seconds of your time. If you were listening on Spotify today, give us a 5-star rating there. If you were listening on Apple Podcasts, there's also a place where you can give a 5-star rating. Scroll down about the past the most recent 12 episodes, and you'll see the rating section. And if you're watching or listening through YouTube today, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. You're just going to get about one push notification a week when a new episode drops, and outside of that, we'll leave you alone. With that being said, also go over to serenityfallsdeodorant.com, support Vic and his efforts. Do yourself and your body a favor and get a very great smelling deodorant that is also healthy for you, and give them a shot. Go buy one and see what you think. With that being said, guys, I hope that you have a healthy and happy Saturday night, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.